Today on Twin Cam we are going to be making a mess of some previously perfectly good wheels. You join me today in the garden, which means I have left the relative comfort, safety and warmth of the garage and come out into the very bright, wide open world, which is scary. It also means we can do some painting without getting crap on Melvin. These are Melvin's original steel wheels. They're fine, and I quite like the way they look with the little hubcaps in the middle. I might put a picture on the screen if I can be bothered. But the problem with these is, number one, they look dreadful because there's little rust spots appearing on them. They were resprayed really very badly before I bought the car, and they're a bit skinny. These are 4.5 inches wide, which is fine, and the grip is absolutely fine. I'm not really bothered about the grip, but they look a little bit like Melvin is on stilts, so not perfect. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you may recognise these Metro GTA steels. If you haven't been watching Twin Cam for a while, these are Metro GTA steels. They are predictably off a Metro GTA, and they look absolutely identical to Melvin's original steels. The design is exactly the same. They're still 13 inches, the same actual diameter, but the difference is they are 5.5J compared to the 4.5J of Melvin's original wheels. So they are an inch wider, which means chunky, and I like chunky. The extra inch makes all the difference. So today we are going to be respraying these wheels to make them look silver like those ones, to make them look like Melvin's originals, so I can put the little hubcap on and they'll look awesome, but also chunky. These wheels are absolutely ace and are a very popular modification to K-Series Metros, giving them the benefit of extra width while retaining a completely standard appearance from the side. This set's in good condition for being about 30 years old, though there are a few paint chips, bits of surface rust, some pitting and a few curb marks. But none of that's much of an issue, both because we're painting them and because they'll balance up absolutely fine. These ones were sold to me complete with a set of brand new tyres, and not just any tyres, but the go-to fast road tyre, the Yokohama A539. Their size is also something to mention, as these 175/50 R13s are a lower profile than they would have been from the factory, and that's a common choice as well. Having a slightly smaller diameter means quicker acceleration, and a smaller sidewall means less flex and, theoretically, better handling. They also have what I believe to be one of the best tread patterns of any tyre in the world, so even the tyres will look cool. As the tyres are already on the wheels, I'm just going to work around them. The finish will be ever so slightly compromised at the edges, but it's not worth the faff and expense of having the tyres taken off and then remounted a week later. I'm just going to say right now, that's a decision that I'm going to regret. Our first step is to key the wheels by roughening up the finish. This will provide a good surface for the primer to adhere to, and to achieve it I'm using 80 grit sandpaper. I've never done this before, so please, go easy. That's 4 perfectly good wheels, utterly ruined. Once the wheels have been cleaned off, we can mask up the tyres. I'm not showing you any of this because it's tedious, boring and drove me insane, but now it's done, we can get painting. Naturally, we're starting with a grey primer. This is just Halford's finest, nothing fancy. With a few coats of primer, the finish is exceptionally rough, but as they're sanded back, we begin to see all the imperfections in the wheels come to the top. With more and more coats of primer and sanding in between, most of the imperfections vanish and we're left with a surface ready for the colour. Well, a week, maybe a week and a half has passed since the last time I did a piece to camera, but the wheels are now resplendent in grey primer. What a horrible colour. Imagine spraying your entire car in it. Imagine how you'd feel if you drove around in a Nardo grey car. How boring would that be? Says the person that drives around in a white Metro. White's a boring colour, but I bought it used, so can't choose. You get the best spec you can. Anyway, these are now in primer. I've rubbed them back again. I can't remember what grit sandpaper I used. It was probably 600 grit. There are still some imperfections in these, a few pictures of which I'll show you now, and they aren't absolutely perfect, but they're as best they're going to be. I've never sprayed wheels before, and I'm outside as well, so again, not perfect, but they're going in colour. Now, the original colour of the steels on Melvin seems to be lost to history. Nobody that knows Metros, that I know anyway, actually knows the colour. Not that I'm really bothered, because the steels on Melvin anyway were not the original shade of silver. They'd been resprayed at some point, although the spare wheel was. I could have got that matched up, but instead I decided to go for something off the shelf. I went for Rover gunmetal, so this should be a slightly darker grey. It's also metallic, so it should be a bit shiny, so that should be nice. One reason I bought this is because it's off the shelf and easy to get if ever I need it again. It's a bit darker, it's a bit cooler, being gunmetal, so let's get to spraying. The inside faces of the wheels are the first to get their paint. As you can probably tell by these three wheels, I'm not overly bothered about the finish on the inside being flawless. I'm just interested in it being solid and consistent. Besides, the wheels weren't in perfect condition anyway, and once they're bolted to the car, you won't be able to see this side. For the outside faces of the wheels, I've taken much more time and put much more effort into achieving a smooth finish, removing most of the existing imperfections. I haven't used any filler primer to try and hide some of the pitting, but on the outside faces it's relatively minimal anyway. If I was going for perfection, I'd have taken the tyres off. I chose gunmetal over a standard off-the-shelf wheel silver because I think a finish like that is overused. Hopefully this darker metallic shade will give an extra dimension to the styling of the car, away from the outright poverty spec of the original and more towards a retro cool appearance, with the hubcaps complementing them perfectly. This should mean that the car looks less like it's missing full depth wheel trims and more like it's a purposeful stylistic choice. As with the primer, I'm slowly building up the layers across a number of days until I'm happy with the consistency of the finish. Well, after a few weeks of sitting about in the garage curing, we have some wheels that look absolutely amazing. It's been a few weeks, partially because I wanted to really let them cure well, and partially because the British weather has been doing British things. We've had a dreadful, dreadful spring here, just constant rain, no kind of heat whatsoever. So today's been an ever so slightly sunny day, even though it was forecast to rain. So I thought I'd jump out here and film this, so I can finally get the wheels on the car, because I've been itching to get them on the car to see how they feel with these mad tyres, and to see how the car looks as well. But the weather hasn't been on my side, so today is the opportunity. These wheels have just had paint on them. Especially as it's a metallic paint, I should do a clear coat over the top. I should wet sand these and then do a clear over the top, but that would mean two things. Number one, it would take longer, and number two, I'd need to mask them up again, because while I'm doing the wet sanding, of course, I need to take the masking off, and then I need to remask them for when I clear coat them, and frankly, I can't be bothered doing that. Also, over here, in fact, I'm not going to go and get it because that's spoilers. There is a test wheel that I did. On camera, I've only done 3 wheels. The fourth wheel I did off camera before I did the rest of them as a kind of test, so that I could learn some lessons and see how good I really was at doing this before I did it on the other 3. And that wheel has come out well, but not as well as these 3. I've clearly learned my lessons, and I've just done things a little bit better, taken a little bit longer to do them as well, and these 3 wheels have come out much, much better. They're by no stretch perfect, but, or by no means perfect, should I say, stretch of the imagination perfect, but they're really nice. So, I've decided with these, I'm just going to wax them really well. I'm not going to clear coat them because I don't want them to end up glass smooth. I don't want them to be mirror smooth. And the wheel just out of shot that I did previously, when I wet sanded it and then cleared it, it didn't look as good as I wanted it to. Not as good as I expected it to do. A man on a flying horse wouldn't notice the difference between the wheels, but I don't want to risk how good this finish is currently, just for the sake of clear coat. So this is what the wheels look like. They aren't perfect, but this is one of the 2 good ones. Well, I say good ones, they're all good, but two of them are a little bit better than the other two. I'll probably put these two on the driver's side because that's the side I see all the time. Of course, these wheels will have the little hubcaps that Melvin always had from the factory. But yeah, I really can't wait. This is going to be awesome. Just to keep the anticipation going a little bit, I'm going to start by doing the other side. I'm going to be really, really careful putting this down. Ugh. I should have put cardboard down on the patio, but you know, I'm me, so yeah. These wheels have been taped up and shrouded in the newspaper for must be over a month now, so it's really nice to actually get them out so I can get them balanced and get them on the car. That looks awesome. That looks genuinely amazing. Again, not perfect, but on the inside I wasn't too bothered about making them perfect. I was just bothered about making the inside solid. So onto the real attraction. Oh yes. Let's take the thing off the valve cap. I've kind of done that well, ish. Oh my god. That's just awesome. I mean, oh, I'm so happy. A little bit of masking tape there. If I can get it off. I can't. Just checking to see if there's any masking tape on the rest of the wheel, and I don't think there is. That's good. That's amazing. Oh yes. That's the best thing I think I've ever done. I don't even know how good the lighting is on that, especially as the sun's just gone in and it's gone cloudy. A big black cloud as well, so as per usual it's going to rain, but that is awesome. I know you can't see my face, but I'm dead pleased with these. Well, it's the next day and it's another lovely and sunny one, and I've had the wheels all balanced up, so now these are perfectly ready to go back on the car, or on the car for the first time actually. Wheel weights are a bit ugly, to be honest, but you know, rather that than falling off a motorway, so let's go put them on. Now, the final thing in this long and drawn out saga of the wheels, before I can show you all, is wheel trims. Now, I bought quite a while ago, I actually talked about them in a video, like last year or something. I have bought some new old stock wheel trims for this Metro. These are really quite hard to find because they didn't make them very long. Metro 1.1Cs changed in spec quite a bit, and so only in 1991, I believe, could you get these little hubcaps. These are just so cool, and of course I already had these on Melvin, but these are new old stock ones, and they're just pretty. So I have the old ones will be staying. I'm going to actually strip the paint off the old ones and respray them because they're ugly, frankly. I might put a picture in of them if I can be bothered, but yeah, these are awesome, so let's put them on. Oh yeah, that's just the best thing I've ever seen. Whew. Now the wheels are on the car, we can actually go for a drive. But before we do, this is why I regret the decision to leave the tyres on the rims. So obviously the tyres fitted were 175/50s, and that's a very popular choice for people who track Metros especially. But on the public roads, I found that they weren't actually much use. And the reason for that is because of that slightly lower profile, they tramlined like crazy. And also the car looked a bit under-tyred. It needed more sidewall to make the car look right. So very quickly, I went to a tyre shop and bought another new set of Yokohama A539s, but instead in 175/60 size. And that is... There's something coming. It's okay. In 175/60 R13 size, and that is much more sensible for a car like the Metro. In fact, it's the closest size you can still get to the original 185/55 tyre size that would have been fitted to these as factory. You can't really get that size anymore, so unfortunately that's just the way it's going to be. Now, this road, which is usually deserted, has suddenly become really, really busy. That's concerning. Anyway, those tyres are much, much better. Like an incredible amount better than the tyres that were on it. Fortunately, I managed to sell that set to someone with a Metro who was taking it more down a slightly more focused route. So for them, the lower profile, the less flex in the sidewall made perfect sense. But anyway, with these new tyres, for which you will have seen pictures be popping up on the screen by now, this car is transformed. Now, you all know how much I love the way this car drives anyway, and especially now that I own Melody, I can appreciate just how incredibly different a K-Series Metro is to drive, because it's so sharp, it's razor sharp, and the engine is so willing to rev as well that it is just, they are chalk and cheese. Apart from the fact that they look kind of the same, they just drive so incredibly differently, and the addition of these tyres makes this car that little bit sharper, that little bit more focused. The first and most obvious thing that you start to notice with these wider tyres and grippier tyres is that it makes the steering heavier. Metros don't have power steering, which is great because you get that little bit more feel through the rack. And those tyres they weight up the steering just enough to make it feel focused rather than to make it feel like a chore to drive. So that's one little thing straight away that has added to the feel of this car. Now, you all know from a video I did quite a while ago now that I have a slightly smaller steering wheel on this car. Original Austin Rover, but it's a smaller wheel, and that again just gives it that slightly more focused feel than it did from factory. K-Series engines, my friend, K-Series engines. And we're still under the speed limit, into fourth gear. Metro pedals perfectly placed for heel and toe. On a K-Series, A-Series pedals are different. And the gear change from that R65 gearbox is awesome. Anyway, this is not a review. This is me talking about these tyres. But they just add so much more grip to the car. Metros are so neutrally set up anyway that they don't understeer. I've never ever managed to get this car unstuck driving it over, I've had this car nearly 5 years now, which is scary in itself, but I've never managed to get the car to really understeer, because whenever I feel like I need more steering input, you put a bit more in and the car just goes. They are incredibly neutral. For a little front wheel drive Super Mini, they just don't understeer, which is incredible. As I'm sure we all know, the single most important component in dictating how a car feels on the road is the tyre choice. And that's because it's the only thing that actually holds you to the road. So in my head, somehow I have to separate the fact that the wheels are now an inch wider and so the tyres are bigger, with the fact that I have these A539 tyres on. That was a failed gear change. Let's go left, actually. Now, these A539s, I absolutely cannot fault them. Though the original set tramlined like hell, this set doesn't, because it's closer to the correct size. And so they feel just awesome. As I said, the steering has that extra weight in it from the wheels being wider. And the car just feels so eager. It just turns in so nicely to everything. And while there is body roll in there, just inherent from the car being a Metro and the suspension being hydrogas, the tyres themselves are just so good. While this car used to feel as though it kind of danced a little bit, because it was so light on its feet, it meant that you could make very minute adjustments and the car would just kind of respond to them in such a characterful way. It still has that character, but it does it very differently now. Instead, what it does is it feels chunky. With the additions of the exhaust as well, the whole car feels more grown up. Do you know what it feels? It feels like more of a performance machine. And that's not what this car's meant to be, but God, it feels like it. It's a car that you used to feel like you wanted to drive at a reasonable speed, and that's it. Whereas now it feels like a car that is saying, come on then, show us what you got. And it just wants to go. The K-Series engine's so eager to move. So eager. The tyres are so grippy, it doesn't understeer, and the exhaust sounds so good. And we're still under the speed limit. It just doesn't get any better. Does not get any better. What an ace little car this is. The worrying thing about this though is that it kind of makes me want to go down a particular direction with the cars. Oh, the gearbox is great. Pedal placement's awesome. The roads are horrendous. But it makes me want to go down a slightly different direction with the car. So, as it stands, this car is visually perfect. It's absolutely as I want it. It needs a few little, it needs a few rust repairs on it, as you'd expect for any Metro. It could do with some new paint in some places, but visually, black bumpers, the roads are just dreadful. The black bumpers, the white paintwork, the GTA steels and that exhaust just make the car look ace. And so visually it's perfect. It drives brilliantly as well. It needs the cans doing just as Melody does, but to be fair, it's much better than Melody. And I am hooning along some really, really horrendous roads. So that needs doing, but it kind of makes me think that I would quite like to make this car into a bit of a B-road weapon. Not put any mad engines in it, but just to make it handle as well as I could possibly make a Metro handle, because it drives so well as it is that now I'm thinking, oh well, I've got the new wheels and I've got the awesome very sticky tyres with the cool tread pattern and I've got the exhaust, why don't I also get the suspension done and then get some anti-roll bars on it, maybe do the front shocks like the GTI has. All these things are options that are now flying around my head that never were before, because the car just feels so alive and so eager, and I feel like I need to respond to the car's seeming will to just absolutely hoon around some B roads. What an awesome little car. In all seriousness though, if you've never driven a K-Series Metro, or you've only driven an A-Series Metro, get in one of these. Just find someone that has one and drive it, because it's ace. So it's just worlds apart from the A-Series car. Worlds apart. Apart from the fact that they kind of look the same and kind of have the same dashboard, nothing else. Nothing else is the same. They ride differently, they handle differently, they obviously sound completely different, the gearbox is completely different, the pedals are in a different place. What an awesome little car this is. So don't worry about the fact that I have Melody. There's a few people commenting saying, have you sold Melvin? No, I've not sold Melvin. Melvin's still here. Melvin will stay here for quite a while yet, because he's ace. Well, I don't want to sell such a cool car. Also, my friends won't let me sell this car, so I'm kind of stuck with it. Little bit of one tyre fire. So yes, on that note, from a very happy me and also seemingly a very happy Melvin, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please do click like and subscribe to TwinCam as well. As ever, I am completely indebted to my wonderful Patreon supporters, so if you'd like to support me that way, then please do follow the link in the description. And I'll have more videos coming along soon.